Hi, this is Terry Duncan with Cut, Color, and Create. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be experimenting with two of Gina K's new release items. The first is her large wreath builder templates, and we're going to use the 5 1/4 version. And we're going to be using the Fluttering Fall, can you see that? The Fluttering Fall Layering Stencil Bundle, which comes with stamps, stencils, and dies. So the first step we're going to take is to begin to stamp onto our wreath. As you can see, I've already got the wreath builder set up in my MISTI. And as Gina directs, we're going to I cut this piece of cardstock to the shape and size of the wreath that I'm going to build, so that it just fits exactly into the template. And what the idea or the inspiration for this card that I'm going to make is monarchs. I grew up in Wisconsin where there were a lot of beautiful monarchs, and I thought I'd like to replicate those onto a wreath. So I'm going to begin with stamping on the center part with the antennas of this beautiful little butterfly. And so I actually set that in a different place than I wanted to start. I'm going to start on an angle. And I think I want to just put my little butterflies in the corner. So I've got it set up on my MISTI, and I'm using Altenew Jet Black. And I think I'm gonna work on a little bit better impression there. Okay, now instead of stamping it in this position, I'm going to go ahead and go all the way to the next corner. And I'm going to do that 2 more times. And as you can see, I've picked fall colors to work with. Okay, now I'm going to move my little image. For this wreath, I'm going to use the same image over and over again. And I'm going to set my cardstock in this position. I'm going to use my grid just to make sure I don't get any ink on my card. And as you can see, that's a good idea for me because I tend to get it all over the place. I think I'm going to just do something like this. I'm trying to create a little bit of interest by not having the same angles. There, let's go with that. And I'll remove that transparency grid and then stamp this on all 4 sides. right there. Now, that's all the more we're going to use the wreath builder for, so I'm going to move that out of the way. And next I'm going to stamp a sentiment, and I'm going to use the thankful here. You can't see that very well. Put that in. This is the one I'm going to use. And because it's a brand new stamp, I use a conditioning eraser. Mine comes from Altenew. And then I'm going to ink up my stamp again using jet black. And I'm just going to stamp that onto a white piece of cardstock. Make sure I get a good impression. Beautiful. Okay, so that's the stamping done. My next step is to my next step is going to be to create the butterflies, and I'm going to do that on vellum. I'm going to be using Distress Oxide Ripe Persimmon, and I'm just going to stamp up the butterfly from Gina K's stamp set, making sure I get a good impression. And then because I have 8 of the antennas stamped up, I've got to create 8 images. I think I'm going to tape down that vellum so it doesn't, it's curling, and I want to make sure that it doesn't ruin the image while I'm stamping. Okay, so get a good impression. And I'm just going to do that 8 times. Monarchs are a beautiful orange color, and that's what I'm trying to replicate here, is that gorgeous orange that they have. The vellum kind of moves the color a little bit, which is okay. When you see the next step, you'll see why it's okay. Okay, so we have our 8 images. Now, if you are a patient person, you can let that dry before you go on to the next step. I am not, so I'm going to use a heat tool and just use a light or a low setting to try and heat that up. Dry it off a little bit. As long as it's shiny, it's wet. You want it low heat so that it doesn't warp the vellum. Okay, for this next step, then I'm going to take the stencil and I'm going to put it right over the image. I'll start with this one here and tape it down. And then I'm going to use Distress Oxide, black soot. And I'm going to use this little tiny blending brush from Honeybee. And I'm just, with a very light touch, I'm just going to start to add the edges in. All the way around. And I'm blending the tips of the wings just a little bit and show a little bit of the veining that they have in their wings. There we go. There's the first one. And I'm going to do the same thing with all of them. And I'm changing up the tone just a little bit so that you can see a little bit of difference between each of the butterflies. This one I'm making the black a little bit darker, coming up a little bit further on the Don't forget that you can reuse some of that ink that you test out on the stencil. This is a super cool blending brush. Makes it easy to get little lines or little detail. Okay, on to the next one. Okay. So that is our coloring. I want to show you the beautiful images that this technique creates. When we look at the back side, which is actually the front side. Aren't those beautiful? And so now the next step is to cut them out with the die that comes with the set. And I believe this is the one. Yep. Where did it go? So I'm going to little butterfly. Now I'm going to do this 7 more times. Okay, so that's all of the butterflies cut out. Now, we have one more thing to cut out, and that is the sentiment. So, get this back on center. And this time I'm going to do this the opposite direction. And I am going to use the circles from Gina's Master Layouts 3. I just have to decide. I think that'll make a nice see, I've got the wrong plate in there. And one last one. Okay, so that's all of the die cutting. So I will get my machine out of the way here so that we can assemble this. If you noticed when we stamped this, the antennas were part of what we stamped on. And when we die cut the images, the antenna were also cut out of the die cut. So I think what I'm going to do is just fussy cut those off of each of my little butterflies. And now what I'm going to do is fold each one of these, or bend them, I guess I should say, so that I've got a place to glue them on. I'm trying to decide whether I like the actual blended side better than the vellum side, and I think I do. It's a little more vibrant color. So I'm just using my thumbnail to kind of create a dent just realized that we probably need to put the sentiment on before. Wow, I didn't plan that very well. Maybe it's okay. So I'm going to use some Connect glue and just fasten that on. Just creates that dainty little edge. Add that right into the center. Now that I think about it, because this is going to be three-dimensional, I'm going to go ahead and finish my card base. So I've already put some Be Creative tape, 7mm is the size I used, onto both sides of a piece of craft foam that's just a little bit smaller than my card panel. So I am going to come on. I'm going to add that to the back. And so like I mentioned to you earlier, I am using the 5 1/4 inch wreath. So I cut my cardstock to 5 1/4, and then I created my card base just a 1/4 inch larger than that. So I'm going to take the back, if I can, I'm going to take the back off of this double-sided adhesive. And it does not want to come off. And I'm just going to add that to the card. Now all I have to do is add my butterflies. I'm going to do that with 3/16 inch glue dots. And get them out of the box. And I like to do this by just cutting them off of the strip. And then I'm going to apply them to the back side of the butterfly. Making sure I know where the dot is. Putting it right in the center of the butterfly. And then burnishing that on with my fingernail. And then take it off. Remind it how it was bent. And then start to apply it to the card. And I notice I should have cut these pieces off too, so you can see the part that's stamped onto the card panel. So I'll do that real quick. And now we're going to add all the rest of the butterflies. So there you have it. My version of Flittering Fall. I hope you like it. Please let me know if you do by liking and leaving comments. For more ideas, check out my blog at www.cutcolorandcreate.com. Thanks for joining me. Bye.